Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm so excited for today's conversation. So, Mark, let's get started by having you tell us who you are and what you do in the events industry.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Marc Ghafoori. I am CEO founder of AlphaTooth. I spent about 15-ish years in the GSC space of the business events industry, and now I find myself in a place where I want to try to help people on their business on that side of things so that they can execute on the event side, the event site, show site, show up a little bit better by prepping and doing things a little bit better beforehand.
Well,
It's
that's
kind of very
it's
sad.
funny that we are an industry of planners and yet so much happens last minute. It's like shouldn't we have had a plan for this? Is that
It's comical how much really happens so damn last minute. Like the majority of decisions are made within like the last 6 weeks of the planning process before you get to show site, which is kind of crazy to think about. It just boggles the mind that that's the point where most people finally prioritize themselves and prioritize their lives to be able to make decisions for what's coming up. It's like you have 12 months, 9 months, what have you, to plan out this thing, but we just try to cram it into that last little bit, last tiny bit of time, and it's
yeah.
painful.
And why do you think that is? Like what like especially on those annual shows, right? Like
Yeah,
it's one thing if all of a sudden someone on your team says, "Hey, we have an extra $10,000 and we need to spend it and go make an event." And I mean, any planner can make an event, right? But how many shows are we all going to that we know we're going to be there next year? I mean, this will timestamp this a little bit, but last week was the biggest event planner show in Canada. It happens every year at the same time. And I wasn't on the planning side, but I'm sure there were still things that were getting planned last minute, even though it has literally happened at the same time every week at the same place for 20 years, right? So what is causing that?
oh well, there's so much there. I would say the event planners are kind of like doctors where they make the worst patients, and like
Mm,
for us planning for us, we know we try to stretch it as much as we can, even though we know what the repercussions are. Because what we're trying to do is work out partnerships. We're trying to do that plus one thing to everything that we're doing. So we're like, well, if we just, I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to figure out the actual nitty gritty of it once we get there to that point of needing to decide. And then you've got, by the time that you get to a point of no return, you've got a stack that's as tall, it goes to the moon with all of those things that you need to determine. And I'm not saying like everybody does that. Everybody doesn't. But it seems to be the case where we plan for ourselves a little bit worse because we try to do so much for all of those instances.
well, and that's part of the
Try to,
problem, right? Is that we're
yeah.
taking on too much. And I was talking about that with a planner recently. And actually, it was someone on the vendor side, it was someone from a hotel. And I was telling them that honestly, not every time, but a lot of the times the vendor that I'm choosing is just the one that responded to me the fastest because
Oh no.
which is like not
Oh
the way
no.
you should be doing it, but when your executives don't understand why it takes 2 weeks to get a quote on a ballroom
Yeah.
and 50 room nights. Like they don't understand it, and frankly I barely understand it because like you either have the rooms or you don't have the rooms. It shouldn't be that complicated, right? And the number of
Yeah.
venues that I'll never hear back from, despite calling them, despite all of those things, like I will literally pick a venue because I'm hearing from a sales rep, even if they're not like, "Oh, here's your proposal back the next day," they're just telling me, hey, it's going to take me till the end of this week, or, I'm just waiting to hear back from another client who's already got a hold, or whatever, just kind of keeping you in the loop. And I've
Mm.
told friends usually when they're getting married and they're like, the venue's not getting back to me. The wedding is in 6 weeks. I'm like, that venue coordinator is not worried about your wedding in 6 weeks. Like, that is an
Yep.
eternity. That is 500 weddings from now, right? They're focused on what do I have to do this weekend,
Yep.
and it's harming the venues and it's harming our ability to really pick great vendors But really, I'm just picking the ones that I'm hearing back from that I feel like, oh, if you're responsive now, you're going to be responsive when I'm on site too.
So that's I think what it is. So I'm gonna hawk a product that I vibe coded and threw together like a month or 2 months ago, and I want to talk about this for a hot second.
Yeah.
It's called the Vendor Velocity Analyzer. And basically what it is, it's got like 20 plus vendors categorized in different rows with the timelines of like when you actually need to be making the decision for their RFP and decisions for them throughout the whole process. I say I'm hawking a product, but the thing is free. I'm just trying to build it as a tool. It's fun. I was like watching Netflix and just built it. That's the goal there. But what was interesting was I was getting some feedback from folks in procurement saying that it was a really valuable tool for their team to be able to use to communicate in two different directions for the meeting planners and for the VPs that are making maybe the thumbs up down decision on whatever it is that's happening, for them to be able to understand like where everything actually fits into the process. Like if you're looking at 20 to 30 different vendors, nobody really is on an annual basis, I hope, at least from a contract. So that's yeah, let's not go there. But let's hope you built up a few good relationships where they can cycle through. But what I would say is like, okay, like what you're talking about, the venue planner, like they don't want to make any kind of decisions outside of their window of what is acceptable because they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off trying to execute within what's actually in front of them, what's in there, what they can hold their arms around. That changes by vendor, by company too, but I mean there's standards within each of the service provider tiers or service provider categories that you pick from. Like a GSC, me being in that space, like the lead time that I needed was much, much more than, let's say, somebody showing up to do sign language. Like if you're like those two different things are completely different. And the same thing for an AV or production company. Like they got to source some equipment if they don't have the inventory themselves. And if you're talking about like quantities of mics and screens and all of this, 18 months out, they'll be happy to take your order, but they're not going to actually try to like put that inventory like Jenga game, Tetris game together to be able to figure out if they have the right product at the right place at the right time. And so like meeting the two of like the planner needs it decided, figured out at this time, the vendor needs it decided at this time, and then the venue needs it decided over here at this time. You got to kind of try to find that sweet spot of like, okay, I need to make a decision about this at this time because this person needs it, and that's just what we need to do. And then, hell, if you got a traveling show that goes from different venues, it's a new venue that you have to get acclimated with. If you've got a new GSC every single year, a new registration provider, I mean, like all of that changes with every single change that you make. So that's where I'm like, I hope you don't have 20 plus different vendors that are getting reconfigured every single time.
I mean, most of them are. It's based on the venue, right? Because like so, and it's probably just my experience too. Is like so much of my work has been moving from city to city to city to city, and like, okay, we're redoing this exact same thing in 12 different locations, right? And so getting a new venue, getting a new AV, and getting this and that, like it does. Like I'm like, oh, last year, I think I did 80 events. I'm afraid to count how many contracts that would actually end up being.
Well, and that's where like finding a good partner for some of those services that you have is like, this is so cliched, but it's like gold. Like if you find somebody that actually has your back for doing things. And I'm not saying you're going to find a partner for every single thing because like you said, you're traveling and like you can't execute in some areas with a physical product because it just costs too damn much to take it there.
Yeah.
Like you gotta find more economical solutions. But if you find a vendor that can travel with you and they're looking out for you because they ultimately want to make their job as easy as possible and they connect in with 5 to 10 different vendors, they're playing the Jenga game too, just from a different place. Tetris game. But I mean that's the name of the game is like finding some partners that one you can be on the show floor with for an extended period of time and spend months planning for before that, and then two you can maybe like kind of be okay with talking to them on a regular basis after all this is happening. That's a bonus if you can actually find a normal human
Yeah.
That's fun. That's
Oh,
nice.
for sure. There are definitely like vendors that I rely on because I know that they've helped me out in a pinch or they've, gone above and beyond or have just been consistent. Like I know that I'm going to hear back from them. And if I'm not hearing back from them, oh, it must be something. And I ping them. And like I have some vendors that I have literally on my Slack because it's just easier than going back and forth in email. Like there was one vendor last year that I'm like, I cannot get another email from you because I'm getting 100 emails a day. Like, I'm putting you on Slack
Yeah.
so that we can at least talk out these decisions. And then when we're at like a final, like, okay, you need me to sign off, I'll sign off on an email so then you have it for your records. But like this back and forth is just it's too much, right? And it's finding those vendors
Yeah.
that are willing to like get a little creative in the way that you're working together or get creative in the way that you're approaching an event. Like I think that great vendors really want to be your strategic partner. At the event I was at this week, like they were talking about not using the word vendor anymore and moving to partner. I personally have an issue with that only because I work with, when you're dealing with sponsors, those are your partners. So that's just a semantics game. Like I understand what they mean of like, you're looking for vendors that are going to act as partners because ultimately it benefits them to
Hmm.
be a partner to you because presumably you're going to continue to give them work. You're going to continue to refer them work, right? Like the vendors that I'm talking to now, the AV, the swag, the fabricators, even the shippers, like they're like, we want to be the person you call because we know your account, we know how you work, we know like your likes and dislikes and what you need, and it makes it easier for them and then it makes it easier for you if you're not having to, like you said, find a new vendor every time and go back and forth and oh, they don't understand our brand or they don't understand like our executives or they don't understand our stakeholders, right? Like find the people that get it and then go from there.
I think whatever name that we apply to them, it's going to evolve as society evolves, or it's
Yeah.
going to evolve as we progress as an industry. And like the what I would say in my mind, when I think of a vendor and a partner, I think a vendor is transactional. It's going up to the McDonald's counter and you order a cheeseburger and fries, and that's what you get. A partner is going to tell you like you probably shouldn't eat that today. Maybe you should have something. You haven't had a salad in a while. Here's a salad
Yeah.
instead. They know more like what you need rather than what you want,
Yeah.
and are able to talk to you about that because what they're after is like the core function of the event, not what you're asking. Like what you're asking may be just completely wrong or
Yeah.
not correct in the moment. And you need someone that's, like I said, that's got your back, that will defend you from like the weird transactional folks that pop in and are looking out for what actually matters, which is like the experience of the folks all that are all partaking in that event.
Yeah. And
The exhibitors.
another thing
So
around it too is like letting people work in their zone of genius, right? So I've worked with like designers and kind of going back to swag or print and the designers of like someone will tell me we want the invite to do this or we want the invite to say this or we want the logo here and I'll say okay, let me check with the designer because sometimes they tell me things that I haven't considered. Like before we got on this call, I was talking about how I have a new lighting setup. I hope everyone's enjoying it. But I have a new lighting setup because I have a friend who's very into that. And he came and said, okay, you need some light here. This is where you need to move this, right? Because there's things that I don't think of because my zone of genius is not lighting. My zone of genius is not design. My zone of genius is being like, this is why you can't have a 3-minute break. And this is why you need your salespeople to have a proper follow up, right? Like letting those people tell you, hey, I know you said you wanted the logo on this piece of swag or that you wanted it on this, part of the banner, but have you considered this? And, the visibility might not be good or this is going to get too small. It's going to be hard to read. Like, things like
mhm.
that where they can really tell you or like AV, I'm working on a program now with a really tight turnaround time on load in and I'm relying on them to tell me, okay, this is what we can use from the group that's there before. Here's what you'll need. Here's what's like not possible unless you want to be up literally all night trying to do a setup, right? So letting them operate in their zone of genius that allows you to focus on yours.
we've never been there all night doing a setup, right? Like that doesn't happen,
That
right?
never
Right.
happens. That never. I've
No,
never
no.
had to wait until 11 o'clock at night to get my crates back, so I can say, "Please let me get my crates back tonight, so that I do not have to change my flight tomorrow morning."
Do you think about it like from the vendors and the folks that are helping you that are coming to your cause? Do you think of it as like a collection? Because it is very much like finding those folks that are like the not necessarily the best, but it's that match to
Yeah,
match what you're needing. So like I think about it as like a collection of people of capabilities of like my crazy brain thinks about it in a very methodical way of like, okay, I have a GSC provider. I have a production provider. I need somebody that is creative in the production side because they can implement a physical. So then I go out and hunt out and I go out and talk to, I don't know, 5, 10 different people and shake hands and get drinks with people until I feel comfortable enough. I think of it as like fulfillment of those people that are in my back pocket because it's all a game of MacGyvering. Even if you have the contract played out, it's like shit's gonna hit the fan and you need that other person to come in. But it's like that notion of like collecting those assets or
for
those
sure.
teams
I think
are like
there's a couple of things you've hit on, right? I think that you with your vendors and partners, you're almost building a team like you are internally, right? And especially now, myself being an external third party planner, I always had the team of people that I relied on, the vendors that I would go back to, the locations that I would go back to, the shipping companies and the like all of those folks, AV companies that I would go back to. And now being independent, also even other planners that I will go to say, hey, I can't take this on, or I can take this on, but I need an extra person on site, like, kind of getting that network. And it's almost like building your team out how you would internally. You want them to all work well together. And I know personally, like, I rely a lot on, there are so many Slack channels and event planners I know that I'll shoot a message and say, hey, do you know a print fabricator in this city? Or, do you know like a great private dining? Like, I'm working on a private dining event in New York. I threw it into the chat like, hey, I can Google this, but where have you been that you're like, oh, you've got to check this out. This is the next thing, right? And even with my vendors, I might say, hey, can you do this? And they'll say, no, but I know so-and-so that does. And then I
yeah.
feel comfortable because I'm like, okay, well, if you're recommending them and I know how you work, I'm expecting that they're going to work very similarly, right?
What's funny is like this relationship that we build with these vendors, it becomes intimate, but it is not a marriage.
Yeah.
Because the silly thing about the relationship is like you just said, this person is going to bat for this other person. Their own credibility is kind of on the line for bringing this person, and it's a telltale of like who they are and how they come to show site. But it is not like a marriage. You're not tied to this person because the saying is like you're only as good as your last event, and that's true. Because if you really screw it up, then you really messed it up, and it's going to take you a long time to be able to repair that. But what's the interesting aspect is you don't go into it from a monogamous perspective. You go into it and you have to keep your sights open because sometimes the grass is greener and you just don't know. And if you get locked into like just that group of people, you're missing out on what these guys are doing 3 doors down. And it's a funny space to be in because you just don't know until you have those conversations, and you kind of feel like you're cheating when you are having those conversations.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and I'm gonna keep going back to like, what are people really, really good at, right? And I think that there are some vendors, and AV is a good example. I know in the Toronto area, a number of independent AV companies, and some of them have really built themselves as like high-end production. And I said to them once, like, I'm not calling you for a projector and screen and a simple and they're like, we'll do it for our clients because like we want to be there for them. I'm like, but that's not why I call you. I call you when I want the wow factor. And when I need something cheap and cheerful, like I've got my cheap and cheerful vendors, and there's nothing wrong. Like they both serve their purpose, but they're just different. And I think it's the same with any vendors that you're working with. Like there's going to be some that are really great at pulling things together last minute, whereas others are going to be better at, oh, we can get something really, really exclusive, but it's going to take us time. Or like even, a swag provider I use quite frequently, he'll tell me, okay, you're looking at this item. Well, if you need it in 2 weeks, I can get it at this price. But if you can wait 6 weeks, I can get it from a different like overseas vendor or something like that, right? So yes, sometimes it's not just like, yeah, you feel bad if you've got a great relationship, but sometimes it's just not what they excel at. And like I said, like for that AV company, if I'm working on something that is super premium, super high end, needs to have a lot of wow factor, they're who I'm going to call. Because sure, they can send, one or two people with a projector and screen and a few lapel mics, but like that's not what they want to be doing, and that's not what I want to be paying them to do, because I know that their prices are a premium because of the production that they're going on, and that's the reputation they have. And again, neither one is good or bad. It's just everything has a purpose. It's the same as like if I'm doing a private event, right? There's sometimes when a Lucky Strikes will work, and sometimes they won't. And Lucky Strikes is, I'm just pulling that because everyone will kind of have an idea of what that is. Like, that'll work for some groups, but you're going to try and send executives there? No, that's not going to work. But a staff event? Perfect, right? And it's the same with all of your vendors. And you kind of have to, my old boss used to call it the New Balance versus the Louis Vuitton crowd. Nothing wrong with either one of them. They just have different expectations and are expecting different things. And if you put the New Balance in the Louis Vuitton restaurant, they're going to be like, oh, what is this? This is like fancy and frou-frou and I don't like this. Whereas if you put the Louis Vuittons in the New Balance restaurant, they're not going to like it, right? So it's knowing your audience and knowing what you really need for that ask kind of thing.
It very much is. It very much is. And the funny thing is, like, you can think of this is how I visualize it in my head. I see like a wall of gears that are spinning and locking in with each other at different sizes, different ratios. They have more teeth, less teeth. Some of them are broken, and so on. And each of them are representing service providers in the industry. And you might pull out the cog of an AV production company, but they look different than the next one that you slot into it, and they can perform and execute different things. They're extremely good on that high-end creative. Whereas this one that you just pulled out, not so much. That tooth is missing. They can still connect in with everything else. It might not work as efficiently, and it might be a little crappy, but it'll still work. And I can tell you from the other side of things, like I've been on that side where you felt obligated to say, no, let me take care of that for you. Even though it's too small, it's fine. But what I'm thinking in the back of my head is, this is going to kill my margin for the global aspect of your account. I don't want to lose your business. I don't want somebody else creeping in to jump in to be able to take over even the small things. Once they have a foothold, then they can potentially, squeeze in and take over the whole relationship. And so that's like kind of the game. It's the funny aspect of what we do is like, how much of that is okay?
Well, and that's and I feel like that was like the perfect side to wrap it up on. But that's why it comes back to relationships, right? It comes back to your relationships. Totally. Knowing your people, knowing the people internally and externally that are going to be able to support your programs, and understanding like where they're going to have the most benefit. Because like you said, like it is easy, and that's what every competitor is trying to do, is just get a little bite, like a little nibble, right? And look how we helped you out at this juncture, right? And so like it does sometimes make sense to take on things that you're like, oh, this is not what I should be doing. But it really just depends, and again goes back to like that team aspect of like your internal and external teams are going to be what dictates the success of your event, and having a strong network is going to make such an impact throughout it.
Totally.
Amazing. Well, like I said, perfect place to wrap up. So Marc, tell us, where can we find you online? Where can we find out more about what you're doing? And how can people check you out?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's pretty recognizable. I think there's only one of me out there. AlphaTooth is company name. AlphaTooth's the company name. Go to alphatooth.com. Just find me on LinkedIn. Shoot a connection request. Shoot a follow on there. I'm there too much, honestly. But that's the easiest way.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what makes it fun. Is the fun people on there. Right. So amazing. Well, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.